Okay, Mr. Meyer, we are live and ready when you are.
Okay, sounds good. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Seldovia City Council, Monday, April 3rd, 2023. Time is 4 p.m. This will be a budget work session, and discussion topics for today will be the FY24 budget special revenue fund overview, and we'll go ahead and kick it off to the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in your packet, and I apologize for not getting this out sooner, it has been an extremely long couple of weeks. But you will see there is a PowerPoint presentation at the beginning of the packet, and then towards the end, there are some actual budget pages, budget worksheets. I would recommend starting on those budget worksheets, page 27, and I'm going to pull up screen share right here and go through the presentation with you as we go through today. As we go through the sheets. So once we have that. Okay, so today I wanted to just do a full overview of the special revenue funds. I thought it would be easiest to just break this into pieces, and then next week we'll go through the general fund, and then the following council meeting, unless we need to have a work session in between there, we can go through the fee schedule and any last minute questions or business that needs to be taken care of. So with that, just a quick overview. We're going to go just a general overview of the expense or the funds by expense, and then for a 5-year overall by expense, and then each account. That's water, wastewater, dock, harbor, and BHO. So I wanted to see for myself, because we've shifted things around over the last couple of years to see really what a difference it made. So even looking from FY19, FY21 to FY23, there has been a little bit of a shift. FY21 a little bit. We tried to switch a little bit back at FY23 off of the general fund back into the special revenue funds, and it just really didn't work out. It would put a huge amount of burden on those special revenue funds that they at this time do not have the revenue for. So we shifted back. We're holding at that 59% general fund for expenditures, and everything else then is in smaller bites for the revenue funds. But I thought that was a good thing just to eyeball how everything is allocated out across the entire budget. And then again, I wanted to just take a look at just how much of an inflation increase we've seen. FY22 estimated is the figures off of the finance report. So while it's not the audit figures, it's probably a little bit closer than what the budget figures were. And with that, I think it was, I had a note, it was like 9.2%. We were looking at a significantly higher inflation increase for FY23, but I don't think that's going to end up being as bad as we anticipated. I think it's like 12. I have the numbers at the end of the presentation with her. Pull them up here. I think it's going to be a little bit less than what we budgeted for, which was a 13.5% is what it ended up being in total. And I apologize. The page you want to start on is 24, not 27, because 24 is going to be water. So overall recommended changes, and of course these are all up to discussion and council's decision, but we did discuss back in October the possibility of having a COLA increase of 4.6 during this budget, just because the last COLA increase was 7.5, and we took a 2.5 for employees back in October, and there hadn't been a COLA adjustment for a few years prior to that. I did work that into this budget, and we can discuss other scenarios if council wants to see it, but it is in there at this point. That should have said a 2, and oh yeah, it does talk about that in the justification. I'm happy to talk more about why I think it is really important that we are able to at least provide some kind of a cost of a living adjustment to our employees. I had a really great conference this last week and have been in discussion with other municipalities and cities across Alaska, Washington, and Oregon, and just nationwide trends that we're seeing. I had one city stand up in the middle of this entire conference and said, we're at a we will pay what they ask model. Juneau implemented a childcare. They pay all of the employees' benefits and childcare, or a portion of the childcare, as well as they have $40,000 sign-on bonuses. And I realize we're not Juneau and we're never going to be there, but the cost to hire and train and retain right now with our 5+ open positions, I feel like it's important to at least be able to show something. So I'm happy to have that discussion. I did include a 4.3% CPI increase. That's what the February numbers were on the Anchorage Consumer Price Index. And we go February to February. So I can pull that up on the website and track that. But if you look, last year was 7.5, which was what we used the year before. That seems to track pretty well with where we're at. I also included a 3% credit card fee for water, sewer, and BHO. We saw a really positive impact with this when we implemented it at the Harbor Master's office last year. It's definitely made a big change. And when speaking with our finance officers, that 3% is about what we pay. And so, for instance, our bills right now at a $98 for a residential water and sewer bill costs the city $3.02 each bill. Health insurance increase. I heard back from our broker and there was a 3% increase for our health insurance, which was not bad at all compared to some other options that were available. And when speaking with AML-JIA for general liability insurance, I was told we are under contract, so they cannot charge us more than 10%. But the way he made it sound, I should aim high. So I put in the full 10%, but I'm really hoping when we get that renewal back, it won't be the full 10%. The audit expenses remain the same throughout the budget. However, we anticipate that to be a slight decrease since this will be our second year with the firm. We won't have as many of the startup costs of them having to review everything from our past history if we stay with the same auditing firm, and they're still buttoning that up right now for FY22. So hopefully we have that to present in the near future. Any questions so far on those changes? Okay, I'll move through this. And if you guys have any questions at any time, just speak up and let me know. And I'm happy to talk it out. So starting with special revenue fund, and as stated, that's on page 24. We can see that we're still awaiting the FY22 audit findings, and it does look like our revenue is a little bit less than what we anticipated, and our expense is a little bit higher. So taking that into account, as well as where we are to date, and those changes that we just discussed, I put together this budget page, this operating budget page, and you can see in yellow, it just highlights what those changes are. Health insurance up 3%, insurance liability 10%, audit fees remain stagnant. On page 25, the financial institution fee, I wanted to highlight that. Those are the credit card fees. So that's what we pay in a year, is $5,900. What we are estimating for last year and this year. And I put in under the revenues just $1,500 for that credit card fee as a starting base, but I anticipate it'll be more than that. With this, we do come into the black, just barely. The other thing that was implemented was I did put in under me find it here. Under state revenue sharing, so this is our community assistance program funding. We received notice that we were set to receive about 75,000. And we then received a second notice last week that it's actually going to be more. The state of Alaska, the DCRA did their allocations based on a $20 million budget, and it's 30 million. So we should be receiving more than the 75. And in the past, we have used it to help offset some of our insurance costs. That's about a $100,000 bill altogether for that insurance, including workman's compensation. A little bit over 100,000. So, we kept it in the general fund for the FY23 budget, but this budget that I'm showing these changes in right now does utilize some of that fund and a few of these funds to help offset some of that insurance cost.
Hey, Heidi, real quick. I see Jennifer's got her hand up for a question.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm looking at the water graph. I don't know if my thing is stuck on this page still, but either way, so the 4.5% CPI or whatever percentage it was. I mean, I understand that, but so why are we having to implement that if it's going down from our FY23? Am I looking at the wrong things? Am I not understanding that correctly?
Wait. I'm sorry. Could you?
So I'm looking at this with the bar graph for the water special revenue. For some reason, still my screen share from you guys.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. So FY23, what you're looking at there was what is a budgeted amount. And I past administration budgeted high for expenses and low for revenues. And in the recent amendment, we took a really hard look at expenditures, and we did increase for expenditures as needed. We didn't adjust for revenues as much as we did for expenditures, because that's what we were looking for, was a permission to appropriate. Once we get the audit back for FY22, that will make some difference with FY23. But and looking at the recent finance report, I took those numbers and what FY22 was and utilized that to come up with a formula for FY24. As long I have spreadsheets for payroll and insurance, and I'm happy to bring those up if that helps you to look at it. But I was hoping to have a more realistic approach for FY24. The revenues for FY23, that additional that 239,597 includes a $36,000 transfer from the ending fund balance. The FY24 proposal does not include a transfer from the ending fund balance. It brings costs down and no transfer.
Okay, so so that explains the revenue being higher, but the expenses are going down.
Well, we're trying. We part of that expense going down is here. If we look, are you looking on page 24 and 25 of the packet?
I don't know. I'm looking at that bar graph. It's still my screen share from you, I think.
Oh, okay. You can't do both at the same time. Okay. Let me see here. I can pop that up for you.
Oh, so I see. So you need to make up that difference of, well, no, still doesn't make sense. But okay.
Yeah. So without the fund balance transfer, our budget is at 231,798 for revenue this year, but our expenses are at 230. And the difference from last year to this year, it went down about $9,000. Is we cut in our water monitoring and testing. We had an excess hit this year because we signed a contract with Alaska Water Labs, and that's an annual contract. We had already paid $6,000 in testing for the fall to, I can't remember the name of the other testing company that we used to use. And then to sign on for the water contract, we paid an additional $6,000 this spring, but that's an annual cost. So next year it'll be 6,000 and then 6,000 and carry, 6,500 actually, 6,510. So that cost was cut for contract services. And let's see, where do we also see, we saw a little bit of a cut in utilities from what was initially estimated for this year. And dues and fees have a little bit of a cut. So trying to keep expenses as realistic as possible and as low as possible. There's not a lot of extra, but that's how we've been running every year. And then the revenues have the 4.3 CPI and the credit card, as well as a $10,553 allocation from the community assistance program. And with that, it balances our water account. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Thanks.
Sorry, I can stop screen share or I can screen share. It's hard because we have the packets here and it's hard. I'm on those tablets to do both, but I can, give me just a minute, try to pull that up.
Yeah, I see Vivian's got her hand up as well with the question.
Yeah, I just had when you spoke earlier about the revenue for the water is down. I'm trying to calculate, do you know where that is or why that is? It seems like that is a standard. We know what we charge. So where is it that it's gone down? Where is the revenue where are we losing the revenue? Unless I misunderstood what you were saying.
So the reason why the revenue for FY23 is so high is because the expenses were so high. So if you remember back in December, we did a budget adjustment in order to raise our best practice score, where we transferred $36,000 from our ending fund balance into our revenues. So that revenue that you're seeing, the $239,507, it's not that our revenues in the water account have gone down. They haven't. It's just that our expenses have gone up so high that we're eating funds from our previous ending fund balance in order to cover it. So this year, we, with the 4.3%, are able to make up a portion of that and hopefully not have to draw at all from our ending fund balance. We're balanced now without it.
Right. So we didn't actually lose revenue coming in the door of the city office.
Right.
But
sorry. I misspoke there. If that wasn't what I was trying to say. I just that our revenue is less than what's planned for FY23, but only because we have that transfer.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So just a kind of a look at the pie here. Employee wages and benefits together are the majority of the the majority of the expenses for the water, followed by utilities after that, and then it would be operational supplies and some other things pretty evenly spread throughout. And just with those considerations, some things that we could do to bring down administrative wages bring down costs in water are the administrative wages. Right now, administrative wages are a significant portion of the water expense, with 20% of both the city manager and finance officer wages being allocated to the water and sewer funds. 15% of each position is allocated to admin and council. So that's something that we can look at updating. And I believe I did make that adjustment before coming here, and I'll pull that up in a second. Equipment expense was increased to account for the purchase of a much needed stream detector. It's a device for the water treatment plant. That he needs to replace, that Jordan needs to replace, that it's a computer piece that he uses on his equipment. And we split that between 70-30 water and sewer. We try to kind of cut a lot of our costs 70-30 water and sewer for the water treatment plant. especially realizing even with what Jordan's water treatment time that he spends up at the plant every day to about 2 hours, starts with a review of what's happening at the wastewater pumps. And so, starts with sewer, moves into water, but they're all interconnected. No capital projects were actualized for the FY24 budget, other than the purchase of that piece of equipment. AMHS water revenue could be reallocated from the water account to the dock account. And I included this because dock is the account that is really struggling, and we'll get there here shortly in the presentation. As I said, we use the community assistance program to help offset the general liability expense in this account. And with the current recommendations, the water special revenue fund will not require a transfer from the ending fund balance at this time. I do anticipate there to be a few more smaller changes, but I think those will be in the positive, depending on what our quote for audit and insurance will be for the next year. We're still waiting to hear those back. Future considerations, we could hire a firm in the future to strategize a plan B and help negotiate an increase in FY23 water and sewer federal appropriation funding. We're going to apply for more of the congressional direct spending funds like we received last year. We received a portion of the funding for a block street sewer project, a portion of the funding for raw water transmission line, and a portion of funding for some dirt material. And after receiving that funding, or during the process of receiving that funding, we found out that the construction prices had greatly increased from what we applied for. In speaking with a firm that's worked with us before for different grant projects, their recommendation was to, try to negotiate and see if we can bring any of those prices up, and B, if not, then see if there's a way we can work at a smaller scope of work, possibly combine funds. Well, Block Street is actually set to be funded by VSW this summer. It's on the schedule along with the Seldovia Slough improvement project and the sewer treatment facility. So maybe that's not one we have to stress about so much, and we could push more for raw water transmission line. But just something to think about and have on our radar. This side of the sheet's really just a more of the items that we just don't want to lose track of. The other thing is certification for our water treatment distribution 1 operator. Thankfully, we have an employee, Radzi, who has graciously agreed to come on and operate the water treatment plant on the weekends. So that will save a little bit in employee expense and give Jordan a few days off a month. Instead of working at 7 days a week, Radzi will fill in. But with that comes some training. So we're looking forward to giving him that opportunity, as well as Jordan still needs to finish, or Operator Cameron still needs to finish his water treatment 2 and his sewer treatment certification. So we're keeping an eye on that for opportunities. We should look at all the accounts to implement a 2-month target goal for unanticipated expenses. For instance, when our roof falls apart or we have a water leak, those kinds of things that come up through the year. I would love to in the future talk about implementing a senior discount, though I don't think we're there yet this year. And our operator highly recommends us looking at in the future reinstating some sort of a maintenance fee at a lower rate that would encourage customers to continue to shut off their water during the winter season. And, of course, there's always that in the background of eventually can we water meter? So that's kind of the overall look at water. And I will go ahead and just pull up that page for Jennifer. Sorry, Councilmember Swick. So you get the full picture. Any questions so far? Any more questions?
Yeah, just feel free if anyone's got anything, so.
Yeah, absolutely jump in. So, council members, Vic, if you see here at towards the end of the packet, you'll see the difference of the budget for FY23 to FY24. Well, the last few years, but the highlighted are the big changes. So it goes up a little bit for employees. Health insurance goes up 3%. If you scroll down, we have the insurance liability at a 10% increase. Financial institution fee, I just highlighted that it's didn't hit 15. I don't think it's going to hit 5,940 for this year or next year, but it's close. And I didn't include any any capital projects. But if you look under the proposed budget revenues, you'll see that the 4.3 is in there for user charge. So those do keep going up like they should. Or as they need to, I should say. AMHS water I highlighted because that is one that we could potentially move for the dock if we need to. However, our water is just barely in the black. Late fees, I moved and I increased that a little bit because it does seem to run over $2,000 a year in late fees that we receive. Credit card fee, I put a minimal amount in there for that, but I anticipate it being a little bit more. And then state revenue, I didn't highlight that one, but it has a $10,553 inclusion. That way we don't have to pull from our fund balance. Okay, and then if we don't have questions on that, I will move along to sewer. Or wastewater here. And so wastewater, we did reallocate some of the staff time and worked to bring down some of the expenses for wastewater. Last year was more of a 50-50 between water and sewer, which just really didn't make sense for wastewater compared to past history and how much effort it really takes to maintain it. We budgeted $63,604 for salaries and wages last year, or for FY23. This proposed budget is actually for $41,321. So having a little bit more of that allocation back on administration than wastewater. And then big changes really for wastewater are, let's see, so you can see staff still a significant chunk, followed really by, let's see, utilities being the next big one, utilities, and then professional services, which is the audit. These considerations are, make this a little bit bigger, not that big. So as said, FY24 administrative wages and salaries were decreased based on estimates appearing high for FY23 administrative regular wages that are currently being budgeted. And per a personnel spreadsheet that we're working through, 4.3% COLA was still included even with this decrease, and FY23 wages were not amended during the mid-year budget adjustment, but I do anticipate that they won't be as high as what's been budgeted for FY23. No capital projects were actualized for the FY24 budget, but same as sewer, should something happen, we could end up needing to do a mid-year adjustment for that if we have a big sewer project that happens. All other expenses remain fairly static and include overall recommendations. User fees are recommended to be increased by the 4.3% based on the February Anchorage CPI. A 3% credit card fee was implemented. And with current recommended changes, the water special revenue fund budget will not require a transfer from the ending fund balance. So we can also anticipate that the expenses may decrease a little bit depending on the audit and insurance numbers once we receive those. So future considerations, increase operation and maintenance costs for what? Oh, yes. For when the water treatment facility comes online, this will be something that'll be on Monday's discussion. And I'm not sure what the timeline looks like for that for construction, but it's a little ways out. But per DEC and VSW, when doing the final review for the wastewater treatment facility, we did not meet all the qualifications of the project that we needed to. We needed a secondary treatment in order for it to qualify for funding. With that and discussion with them, with us also having a long-standing issue of where to put our waste, they recommended that not only that they'll clean out the septic tank, but they're also wanting to recommend pumping affluent from the septic tank outside of town. They have a few areas that they're looking at, and like I said, we can talk more about it on Monday, but it'll increase the cost to our community by, I think they're estimating about $22 a person a month. And we'll have a lagoon. Again, wastewater treatment certification for our new operator and our current operator. 2-month target goal for unanticipated expenses. Would love to talk in the future about implementing a senior discount and reinstating maintenance fee. We're also getting ready to do the stormwater drain plan, and depending on where that takes off, we can watch this fund for any potential stormwater expenses that may be included. So any questions on this one so far? And I will take us to the budget sheet so we can see where we're at. Or any recommendations, anything you guys would like to see differently, please let me know. So you can see here that the salaries and wages have gone down. Everything else kind of stays fairly static, which is pretty typical, especially with some of the different changes that we've had in the last couple of years. Utilities are a little bit higher. Insurance is lower. Audit remains about the same. Dues and fees about the same. Actually, they are the same. Those stay pretty stagnant. And trying to keep costs as low as possible without any of those capital projects. I think it's doable, but we'll have to see how the year goes. We do come in with a little bit in the black. Okay, I'm going to keep going on unless anybody.
Yeah, Vivian's got a question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was just looking at that page you just had up. So the usage fee, did I see $102? Is that the bill that you're talking about, customer bill? It was in yellow highlighted.
Yep.
Okay, so this is for sewer, basically.
Yep. Yeah, so that's a 4.3% increase.
Total over the water and sewer bill that everybody receives?
Yep, for both.
Okay. Oh, okay. So right now it's like 90 some bucks. So with
Yep.
the 4.3 CPI, our bill is going to be 102 now, but that's water and sewer as always. Both
No,
combined.
the 102 there, that's
Well,
more, that's,
100,000.
yeah, that's the budgeted amount for us, the city to receive. But it is close to that. I can pull up the fee schedule here and look at that if that would help.
Well, that's okay. We're gonna do fee schedule at a later date, but.
Yeah.
So it looks like, so we've added on, which we discussed and decided that we needed to do, which is adding that 4.3 CPI and pass that on.
Yep.
That was good business to do. In the conversation about putting the Alaska Marine Highway to out of, was it in water right now, put it into dock? Is that a
Yeah.
conversation that we will have later on in the budget, or is this something that we would be doing at this time?
No, it'll come up when we get to dock. So right
Okay.
now, just as an overview, all of the funds are in the black except for the dock. And
Yeah.
that is something we need to discuss, if there's some kinds of subsidy that this council wants to look at. The issue with the dock is the only revenue source that it really has. The main revenue source is the ferry. So when we have less ferry services, like this year, we're looking at potentially 55 ferries instead of the full 77. Anytime we start losing services like that, then the dock, it doesn't have enough revenue to maintain its normal expenses that it has, because it's split up similar to the rest of these funds. And so, what does that mean moving forward? Do we want to pull, BHO is not doing as well, Harbor is, general fund, community assistance. There are different things that we could use to help supplement that service, since it's so important to our community, and we've talked about what a priority it is, but it's actually our next one, so we can jump right into it.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Unless anybody has more questions on wastewater.
I do one quick one,
Yeah.
Heidi.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of for all of them. So this credit card, 3% fee.
Yep.
I just saw on the highlight you had their financial institution fee was like $3,300, and then we're gonna collect $1,500. So we're not gonna recover all that money. Is that what's happening?
I think we will recover all of that money with the 3%, but I didn't want to put the whole portion in there if that was something that council wanted to talk about alternatives. The harbor right now only has was it $1, Layla? $1 per credit card transaction. So we can go to different methods other than the 3%, but to me, it made sense to start with the 3% because that is what the city is incurring. There's something that you would like to look at different, because I'd be happy to bring it up.
No, I was just wondering. I just figured they would equal each other, but I guess not.
Well, I went low on it, but I could bring that back up. You're
Okay.
right.
No, that's fine. And who knows if there's a fee, some people might start sending checks. Who knows?
Well, and that's
what
why I
was
went
gonna say.
low, is because I was like, I didn't want to assume we would get the entire thing back. It might change.
Right.
It'll just it'll wash itself out.
Exactly.
Some people will go, oh, it's more worth it for me to get my cash back and my miles. And other people will be like, I'll just ACH or write a check. So
Yeah.
is ACH going to be an option for those transactions? Do we incur a fee for ACH? We use QuickBooks. We shouldn't.
I'll have to double check on that. Some of our bigger customers do utilize ACH, but we've never tried it with a utility customer. So I'll check.
That might just be something for Jan to look into for those because the ease of when people pay with credit card and they're on that automatic
what?
payment.
Yeah, we do. We do have a few customers that do that.
Okay. That might be a good thing to let people know when that fee comes out, to make them feel better, saying, hey, you can still be set up on auto pay, reoccurring without a charge. If it doesn't give us a charge, which I don't believe it would if it's similar to anything else I've used on merchant services.
Yeah,
through QuickBooks.
we'll look into that. That's great.
Then if people are a little more happy.
That's an excellent suggestion. Anything further on that one? Okay, so moving on to doc. So doc has a history, 4-year history now of running in the red. And that's just because our ferry service has been a little bit all over the place with frequent layups in the winter. So, and there was, you can see, in FY20, it was at 54,000. It was increased in FY21. The expenses were increased FY21, 22, 23, and 24. I tried to decrease it a little bit in FY24, just with inflation. That's where we're headed here. And I did make a note that as of February 2023, dock revenues are at $34,794. And it's about right on track for, we're hoping for $44,260. We also know that we're going to have less ferry service this year than last year. So a big chunk of dock is, again, wages, and a lot of that is passed through. Some overall considerations: AMHS estimates 55 stops to Seldovia for FY24 versus FY23 77 scheduled stops. That's the primary revenue for the account. Administration. Oh, here's a big thing to note. In October, when the 2.5% COLA increase was implemented, it was implemented across the board for city staff, including for our ferry workers who had whose wage had remained stagnant for quite a few years. And then administration upped their wage to what the contract amount was, which is $17 an employee. And then with the October COLA increase, the ferry wage went up to, the line handler wage went up an additional 2.5%. That's something that the city has been paying this entire year since October, without that additional assistance from AMHS. We are currently in contract negotiations for the next 5 years. And I did speak with AMHS about this and how they handle cost of living increases. And they did agree to a 2.5% increase moving forward. So once that contract goes online, I believe it'll begin July 1. We will receive a 2.5% increase for those employees, but they were not willing to give any more than that. So I do not recommend a COLA increase, an additional COLA increase for these employees at this time. I wish I had it to give it to them, but they did go from, I think it was like $15.91 to $17 an hour with past administration, and then with the additional COLA. So they've had a little bit of an step increase over the last year, and it wasn't included in the budget for anything further at this time. Police salary living stipend, there was a small 2% that was allocated to dock and harbor, and I did not allocate it to either of those funds at this time. We are due for a dock slab repair as reported in our recent inspection. So I budgeted $5,000 from major maintenance and repair expense account for this project. I also took raw fish tax from the general fund and allocated it to the dock. This is something we have done previously. It's gone back and forth, trying to decide where it's going to go, just to give a little extra revenue besides ferry and crane. Those are our only revenue sources at this time. 3% credit card fee is implemented. $2,373 from community assistance programs funds was allocated in the dock for general liability insurance. And again, it does keep running at a loss. So I'm open to suggestions, however we can help subsidize this account. I did mention that we are trying to evaluate additional revenue streams. I spoke with the harbor master and the finance officer about this. We could look at doing some kind of subsidy from the general fund, harbor fund, or the community assistance program for the rest of it. And as said before, ferry employees are a pass-through account, but there still is a little bit of additional expense for Social Security, Medicare, and federal tax.
Question, Heidi.
Yes.
As I'm kind of visualizing the dock, because I'm visual in my head and we're talking about usage fees and that, for the fuel portion of the dock from the
Mhm.
flue, how do we get compensated for that? Or does that go somewhere else? Because that's, in my mind, that would be like the second or third large usage of the dock.
It's in their contract that they get that service.
It's just so that there's no usage fee.
Yes.
Okay. I was just making sure that wasn't somewhere else, because as I was trying to be like, what is under usage? I'm like,
Yeah.
that's my usage of it. And in the summer, that's a lot of
Yeah.
usage. So
Nope.
got it.
Great question though.
Heidi,
Yes.
So the conversation about putting the Alaska Marine Highway underneath the dock as opposed to underwater, refiguring those accounts, that would be helpful to the dock. And are you saying that really the employees for the Alaska Marine Highway should be a pass-through? But how much money are we actually expending in the city a month or a year that's not being just passed through with the Alaska Marine Highway funds?
Well, right now it's a 2.5% plus a small addition for the employer section of the Social Security and the Medicare. And I don't have those figures off the top of my head. With this new budget and our new contract in line, it would just be that employer portion of the employee benefits, which the total is $6,186 for employee benefits. And that also includes a little bit of time that's allocated for staff, for administrative staff or public works staff. So it wouldn't even be that. I
Very little.
take a guess, but it's a couple grand.
That we're budgeting, that we're actually paying.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what would it mean to put the Alaska Marine Highway underneath the dock account?
Well, the Alaska Marine Highway is under dock, everything except for the water. And we have $7,000 budgeted in AMHS water because when they take it on, we bill them per time that they take on water. And that is something that we could move from water into dock. However, we would be in the red in water. So I don't recommend it this year, but we could in the future years.
Oh, okay. So it's already, Alaska Marine Highway is already under the dock. It's the water you were talking about.
Yep, just the water, which
Okay.
isn't water, but it's something that we've done in the past is put ferry water under dock usage. And we can keep an eye on that for the future.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
the only way that would make sense then is if we had a big number of years where they were using lots of water and we wanted to take and do a mid-year adjustment or something and move some of that over if we saw that we had a huge excess there.
Yeah,
Otherwise, we're just robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
With looking into the future, because this wouldn't be for now, as we're looking at what uses the dock, is our contract with the FLUB, is that something that renews at any point, or is that a perpetual contract?
It is a 38-year contract, was when it was renewed. What was that, 2 years ago, Jeremiah? Mayor Campbell, I'm sorry.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
So
Okay.
we have, it's a long contract.
So the only other way to get to in the long term, not just for our budget fix right now, but to be able to get more revenue in is to find another usage for the dock.
Exactly. And, I did look at, we could allocate things a little bit differently. But even with and I thought I wrote that down, even with our allocations now, without employees, we can shift that around a little bit, but without employees, it was about a $25,000 expense just for the dock for the, insurance, utilities, equipment, repairs, maintenance. And we still don't quite make that with what we're receiving in revenues. So we really need the full ferry service to be able to make enough revenue to cover the expense of the dock. Anybody else have any other ideas for the dock here? And I can keep working on it. I will keep working on it, especially as I work more onto the general fund and seeing if there's some creative ways that we can make up some differences. But it's definitely one we need to keep our eye on moving forward. We have to keep our eye on all of them, but dock is definitely having a hard time. Okay, so with that, moving on to Harbor. Harbor is doing well. It's been doing well for a few years, as you can see here on our estimated revenues and expenses for FY22 are amended for FY23 and are proposed for FY24. Allocations, the Harbor's about our only one that has more expenses, or 50% more in expenses more than staff, but they have a pretty high operational supply because they buy a lot of toilet paper and other necessities that they need for that facility. Harbor Master is also, and this is part of the shift, Harbor Master was also allocated a small portion to Public Works, Harbor, Water, Sewer, Harbor's a large chunk, Water, Sewer, BHO, and Dock for FY23 and FY24. Even though we know she is our Harbor Master, she fills a lot of shoes throughout the rest of the city, and we really appreciate her for that. With the outlook of Harbor and feedback that I'm hearing this year with our posted job that we just recently posted for Harbor assistants, and feedback we received when we posted the job and from employees who took that job, the income or the hourly presented just really, it was still at like $14.45. So it was not a lot. And we had a few people that took it just to have kind of a fun job and to help out and to be there. But it's not a realistic wage for most individuals. So I am recommending an increase for those Harbor assistants to $17 an hour. And with that, they will absorb the custodian duties at the Harbor office as well. We have not been able to find a custodian. It's just not something we've had any interest shown in. A 4.3% increase it's being recommended, the CPI increase for monthly, 6-month, and annual mortgages. However, the Harbor Master requests that no changes be implemented for the daily fee, which is already one of the highest in the state at approximately $43.80 plus admin fee plus tax a night for a 32-foot slip. The port fee was increased in the FY23 fee schedule from $1 to $2 per passenger 13 years or older. So I did put a little bit of an increase in the revenues for that. So hopefully we see a great season and see that come through. Future considerations, and we're getting really close to this, is having a 2-month target goal for unanticipated expenses, including any operational supplies, repairs, maintenance. For instance, when our cover of our boat ramp ripped a few years back, or we're slowly replacing Harbor finger pins. We did 5, or we're doing 5 this year. We want a budget for 5 next year. There's an additional 42 more needed after that they're wearing out and we're seeing them break. So we're trying to make sure to get on top of that. The credit card fee and admin fee have had a significant impact on the fund. And like I said, once those repairs are complete, as stated for the Harbor pins and anything else we need, and a 2-month target established, we could potentially be looking at a decrease in rates. establish funds for a portion of this. Oh, and we could also use some of those funds to set aside for state harbor grant program match in the future. It is a 50-50 match. So in the past, we have applied for funding through the Denali Commission for the portion, for the 50-50 portion, but it still helps to have a little bit to be able to put up and say, hey, we have this to offer. Like I said, we could use it to subsidize or absorb the dock or BHO, which we could look at further. And for all of the funds, really, I think that it's important that the city works towards developing a 10-year strategic plan. That's something I would like to work on this summer and fall, just looking at projects and expenses for the next 10 years and what the city can anticipate, so that when we go into these budget discussions or grant discussions, capital project discussions, we really have a good map of what those needs are going to be for each fund. And if we look at its budget, she's doing pretty good here. Everything's holding pretty steady. Contract services goes down a little bit because it went up for FY23. We had a additional expense for our fire extinguishers. It's like it comes up every 5 or 6 years, but we won't have that again for a while. Utilities holding steady, insurance 10% increase, professional service fees holding steady. With did put 500 for legal in there as we continue working with an attorney's office for our boat haul out yard and updating our impoundment procedures. We did still include under capital projects, 10,000 for harbor repair, 10,000 for jackloff. That seems to be the going rate annually, especially with those finger pins. And then for charges, as for sewer service charges, I did highlight under the credit card fee portion just because I wanted to call it out in case anybody saw it under FY22. It shows $53,616. That is not credit card fees. That is stall rentals and harbor transactions that come from the harbor office that Jan has to implement into our QuickBooks account at the city office. And she just hasn't had a chance to do a transaction, a journal entry to move those where they need to be. So really, even though our stall rental is low, our credit card fee is high, it really evens out more. I did pull 10,000 from the Jackloff Bay dock for deferred revenue for the anticipated Jackloff capital projects, and credit card fees stays steady at 1,000. And I think right now she was at like 1,500 for FY23. So probably see a little bit more for FY24 as well. Any questions on harbor?
Yeah, Heidi, if you could answer, we're keeping the Jackaloff Bay dock money separate from the harbor and Jackaloff dock, right? The monies that we got for Jackaloff are being kept separate after we went through all that work in the last few years.
Yep.
Of maintenance out there. That's all separated, right?
Yep. So if you look at the mid page there, I just needed to scroll down a little bit here at the top of the page. Now you can see where what we had in FY20, FY21. You know, we're taking little bites every year, which is pretty normal for what it costs to maintain that dock. So with FY24 budget, it would end at $121,235 with what's been budgeted.
Okay, so that 10,000 that you put in there from, where was it? That if you would just go back to where you were talking about the $10,000 that you put into the Jackaloff.
Yep, from the deferred revenue.
Yeah, so that's from the funds that we had left over.
Correct.
Okay, okay. But you put, then the other 10,000 you put in there, that was from, there was another 10,000 you put into the harbor and in Jackaloff. Am I correct? Did I see
Correct.
that right?
Yep, so
And-
Harbor 10,000, Jackaloft 10,000, Harbor 10,000 would come from major maintenance and repair for Harbor. Or really in reality, if FY 22 looks the way we think it looks, when we get back the audit, she will be out of the black, or I mean, out of the red and into the black, just a little bit. And then FY 23 even better. And so that will begin building up that major maintenance and repair account.
For
future.
for the city or for the city harbor.
Correct.
So the 10,000 that was put into Jackaloft, where did that money come from? The other 10,000.
So there's only 10,000 for Jackaloft, and that's from the deferred revenue account.
Okay, so I must have looked at it wrong, which had before up there.
10,000 for Harbor, that's from MMRF, and 10,000 from Jackaloft.
Okay,
I think she's
Okay.
referring to the capital projects, 10,000.
Oh, let me see.
yeah, it was on, no, I'm just there right now. Right, capital projects, so the Jackaloft Bay dock or repair and maintenance, so the capital project, where is that money coming from, that 10,000? I thought
Okay.
we decided.
Yes, yeah. So that's this 10,000 you're seeing here, and 10,000 and 10,000. This is the expense account. So this is expenses. And if you look down here, this is revenues.
Okay, gotcha.
So I'm just showing it's coming in, it's going out, and where
Right.
they're coming from. So we're saying
Right.
here, we're saying, that we're going to expend it under expense. And then on the next page, we're showing under revenue that we're bringing in funding from the Harbor Major Maintenance and Repair account, and then from the Jackaloft Bay Dock deferred revenue.
Right. Yeah, we need to make sure that we always keep that very public, that the Jackaloft dock repair and maintenance is from that original money, not coming out of
Right.
revenue.
if you-
Okay,
So if you see down on the middle of the page there, Jackaloft Bay Dock revenue, and I apologize, it's small, but the last set of blue here is that fund that we're tracking through the years. And towards it, you can see every year there's a little bit of a draw, 10,000, we did 20,000 in FY 21 actual, 10,000 in FY 22, 15 in FY 23, and 10 in FY 24.
so we're down to 121.
Yep.
Yeah, mhm. Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move into boat haul out. Not too far. So boat haul out. We look here again on FY 23. Expenses were budgeted high and revenues low. If you look at FY 22, you can see that expenses were a little bit lower than what was budgeted for FY 23. And revenues higher. However, that can be a little bit misleading because our boat haul out has a little bit of a systemic problem in it, where we have some derelict vessels due to the fact that they have federal and Coast Guard guidelines that we have to follow in order to be able to impound and move through. The harbor master has worked really hard in the last couple of years to clean up some of those boats, and we have written off some of those accounts. We are currently in the process of impounding one vessel in the dock, and we'll hold an auction later on this year where that will be included. And we were set to introduce an updated ordinance with impound procedures at the April 11th meeting. But I think that'll be more like the end of April now. So we are working with an attorney's office to be able to bring those up to speed and have a more efficient process to move through. A little bit quicker and smoother. It's pretty outdated. What we have now is pretty outdated and did not match federal regulations. So, and working through that, we hope to be able to remedy this problem and make some pretty good progress on this boat haul out fund. Just the general allocations here. That 20%, I believe, is the audit, is a huge chunk. That audit is allocated out evenly across all of the funds. So this is not a very big fund. That means that the audit is a little bit more of its budget. Some of the considerations for it. The additional budget was included in FY23 BHO budget for supplies, contract services, repairs and maintenance and equipment for electrician work in the storage yard, heavy equipment rental to clear boat yard, demolition of derelict vessels and landfill disposal, purchasing of jack stands and replacing trailer boat straps. A lot of these expenses have been actualized to date, so I don't anticipate having a lot of them moving forward in the future. We will, of course, continue to maintain and clean up that space, cutting brush. We're looking at potentially a nice art installation project there via the Seldovia Arts Council this summer, hopefully. Just trying to keep it as a really nice space. I included $500 in legal fees, even though they're not anticipated for FY24, just in case we have any leftover expense from the updating impoundment vessel code and procedures set hopefully for the end of April, to be introduced at the end of April. Storage fee revenues are that are recommended are at $10,000 less than anticipated accrual rates to actualize delinquent accounts that may be written off for derelict vessel disposal. And we can see in history, when we look at the cash versus the accrual reports for finance reports, we do ride right between that $5,000 and $9,000 difference from what we're actually bringing in versus what we're billing. 3% credit card fee is implemented with a minimal estimated credit card fee included for crane use. Oh, sorry, that was supposed to be on dock for crane usage. And then $1,000 in auction revenue is estimated for the FY24 impoundment and auction of derelict vessels. This might be a little bit of high hopes, but I put it in there because I really do think that we are going to be on our game and we're going to start moving through some of these accounts and getting it buttoned up a little bit better. That's a huge goal. I know for Jan, Finance Officer Yeager, she talked about this, really wanting this to be her project. And the Harbor Master has been working on it for years, and we're just really keeping this in our eye. $2,699 in community assistance program funds was allocated to BHO for the general liability insurance. And then some future considerations: boat haul out yard electric repair and expansion is included in the capital improvement plan and needs development in order to seek funding. So we're going to work on that. 2-month target goal for all funds. Develop a 10-year strategic plan for all funds. Like I said, the Seldovia Arts Council is considering including an art installation, and that'll draw focus. So I just wanted to make a note that while it's drawing focus to the northern side of the city, even though it's not BHO specific, that the city is also considering development of the value added building waterfront industrial area. With you guys put out an expression of interest. We're working with a different entities like our Seldovia Chamber of Commerce and our Seldovia Arts Council about how to utilize that area, and just hoping to beautify and draw more attention. So if we look at boat haul out, even with that 10,000 less than anticipated revenues, it's implemented. She's still doing all right, even though all of these funds are tight. They've been tight for some time. So a little bit of an increase to wages, travel, supplies. A lot of these things, when you see them, the travels and supplies are kept in there, even though, like, if you see under supplies for FY22, we only spent $407 total. So kept it at $650 for any unanticipated expenses. Same with contract services and leases. We haven't really spent anything in FY23 so far, but in FY22 we did. Repairs and maintenance, equipment. Utilities are extremely low for this fund. Insurance is in there and in there as a community assistance revenue, and audit is high. That's a big chunk. Dues and fees. And if we look at our revenues, storage fees, keeping it at that 30,000 mark, and that is 10,000 below anticipated revenues. That 30,000 already and incorporates that. Lifts, haul out, launches, ramp fees, locking, those do a lot better. That we don't have such a delinquent account base for that. And then other late fees, those are, I also decreased those, I think by like 50%, just because those are the accounts that we're not receiving revenue on, and used what we the actual account that we receive from the finance officer to support that revenue base. Credit card fees implemented, auction, and that state revenue sharing. For future considerations, I don't think I included that we did draw from this account in FY22 $100,000 to offset the general fund. And so that's something just to keep an eye on for the future in case we do have some kind of a significant increase in the general fund and want to help back out our BHO. We should just keep an eye on that one. Any questions for BHO? Okay. And if you guys want a different format in the future, let me know. I figured it was easiest to start with the bottom line and then we can shake it out from there, whether we need to go up or down on any of these items. So there's that. As ending notes, just a review of what we just talked about. The city anticipates a smaller increase in expenses for FY24 than previous years. FY22 had a 9.2% or $124,476 approximate increase. I feel like we'll probably be pretty close to that once we have the audit done. That'll be pretty close to correct. FY23 budget approximated a 13.5% increase. I don't think, from what we're seeing to date, I don't think it's going to be as high as that, but it's probably about where we are in FY22. It is recommended that FY24 fees are increased by 4.3%, except for Harbor Daily Mortgage to account for that consumer price indexing. A partial allocation of community assistance program funding is recommended for water, dock, and BHO funds to assist with general liability insurance. The community assistance program fund is not a reliable revenue source, and the program's removal is regularly discussed. 3% credit card implementation does tip the balance for water, wastewater, and BHO funds in order for them to be in the black. It helps cover that cost of what it costs the city for those credit card transactions. And as Council Member Keithley said, if we have less people using credit card, well, then it's less expense for us in the first place. So there are other options, and we will certainly explore the ACH option as well. Water, wastewater, and BHO also have very little margin for loss of revenue and are just barely in black with the recommendations provided. Harbor is doing well. Dock fund is extremely dependent on a full ferry service with an estimated $19,560 deficit this year for FY24. All funds are watched closely, and the implementation of a 10-year strategic plan is recommended for every fund, including the general fund. And overall, I just want to say that I feel confident after being with the city, the amount of time that I've been with the city and having gone through this process. And I hope that you guys as well, that the city does continue to make improvements every year. And I think that we are going in a good direction, and there's always room for change and to do better. But with the actual FY22 audit figures and no big surprises coming up, and once we complete the FY23 audit, I think we're going to keep seeing a forward trend in the right direction. And again, FY24 expenses may decrease depending on general liability insurance and audit costs. And that's what I have. What do you guys have for me?
All right, thanks, Heidi. Yeah, lots of good information there. Maybe real quick, let's go see if there's anyone from the public that wishes to. I don't know if I can't see if there's anybody in there or not, or if there's anyone online that's got any specific questions or just comments in general.
I'm not seeing any raised hands at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, that sounds good. And I don't see any huge shockers here from year over year, which is good. I mean, on most of these funds, unless there's something very unanticipated, it should be fairly straightforward, year over year. Again, unless there's some outside influence here. So, yeah, we'll just open it up to a round table for any additional comments or questions from council.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, great presentation. And I guess looking it all over, I'm actually quite impressed our fund balances actually look good, except for the dock. That's impressive. So whatever we've done, we've accomplished something as a council. And it's amazing that the lack of having about 25 ferries equates to about $19,000 or 19.5. That's a big hit. Going to 50 some as opposed to 77. But thanks. I was just impressed looking at the fund balances. That's kind of a relief that I'm glad to see. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. Yeah, anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, go ahead, Bobby.
I don't have any specific comments. I just want to tell Heidi and all the rest of the staff, you guys did a great job in presenting this. There's a lot of good information and I appreciate it. My brain I can't quite wrap my head around everything, as you well know, but good job.
I'll agree
Okay.
with that. That presentation, the way you laid it out was really nice. So I was able to go through it today and not have to spend too much time, for it being the first time for me too, of like actually putting my eyes on this, audit. And so, and it all made a lot of sense. And then it was a great way to be able to look through it, but then sit here and then go through it again. And that's why I have not really many questions, because you were able to answer it as you talked your way through. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. Yeah, I just wanted to comment too here. Yeah, so other than, when we do get in these next couple sessions, at some point we get into the fee schedule, then this can, then we can see where the rubber hits the road here on the total percentage of increase, to all the to the customers, on the customer service side of things. CPI, we knew, years ago when we talked about implementing this, before we had gone a number of years without having a CPI on there, that was keeping up with inflation. So that was something we started here a number of years back, and that's just a fact of doing business, that we have to keep that on pace with what inflation's doing. And everyone's seeing that right now. Inflation's a real thing, and if we don't keep up with that, then we're gonna be hurting. So we spread that, if you will, amongst all the customer base to try to keep things on check. And then the credit card fees are the same thing. It's just, unfortunately, it'd be great if we could just eat those as an overhead expense, but we just can't. So again, that's another thing that's a cost of doing of business, and it's a fee that has to effectively be passed on. So yeah, so it looks like to me, hopefully it looks like all moderate, small to modest increase, but nothing too out of line at all. That I don't think anybody, anything it's not unexpected. So appreciate all the information, the way you guys laid it out. Definitely pretty easy to follow along there. So. Any other questions, comments from council before we wrap it up for tonight? Okay, sounds good. Heidi, you guys, anything final on your end?
No, that sounds great, Mr. Mayor. It just you did give me a little bit of a light bulb moment here. We have presented in the past a review that we did of our 2008 water and sewer business plan versus our inflation rates today. And when I did that review, we really are right on track from what we planned from 2008. So even though there was a standstill in rates increases for a few years, now that we have started this process again, we are where our assistants with BISW and ARWA have recommended that we be, and we do match our costs, which is incredible. So I can bring that back to in a future discussion, just to show that 2008 document moving forward to today with those inflation rates included.
Good. Yeah, no, and that's just another, another metric that shows that we're fiscally, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. Yeah, it's not all fun managing, the city's finances, but that's what it takes to keep the lights on, and that's what we have to do. So yeah, appreciate that. Anytime we've got something, when we can show historically when we tried to do something years ago, and then we proof out that it actually does work, and we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, then I think everyone's doing their job. So that's good information.
Thank you. One last just question for council. I'll leave it up to you guys. I'm glad that the format worked, and I'll keep moving forward with that. I did intend to present the general fund on next Monday's meeting, but if it would be easier to see the fee schedule first, we could swap that. It wouldn't be too hard of a swap to do fee schedule Monday, since there's not a lot of general fund increases in the fee schedule. I mean, there is. We will discuss increasing some of those application fees, a minimal amount, but that's a really minimal amount of revenue. And that they do take quite a bit of time depending on what the application is, administrative wise. So if that would be more helpful for council, it wouldn't be too difficult to switch gears. I'm working on both projects simultaneously to present the fee schedule first Monday, and then general fund at before the next council meeting, or at a separate work session if that's what council prefers.
Yeah, what do you guys think? Any objection to doing the fee schedule next week?
That'd be fine with me. Are we talking before our council meeting? Is it next Monday, a regular council meeting?
Correct.
Okay, so it'd be before that, a work session?
Correct.
Yeah, no, the fee schedule is always an interesting one to look at. I have no problem with switching them out, going that route.
Okay, yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. That'd be good for discussion. Do you think we're not going to need 2 hours for that? Do you think probably, are you thinking of 5 o'clock and then a 6 o'clock meeting, or what are you thinking?
I would say probably 4:30 to be on the safe side. This was about an hour and a half today. Fee schedule tends to be a little bit more heavy, and when we start at 5, it typically goes over. And
okay,
just 5:30 for a little bit of safety.
Okay, yeah, then if we have a 15-minute break or something in there, but there shouldn't be too much downtime in there.
Okay.
All right, sounds good. Okay, well, if there's no other questions, comments, thanks for the staff for putting that all together. We're off to a good start on the budget cycle here, and then yeah, we'll just look forward to next week's meeting and keep things rolling here. And with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn the work session for tonight. Thanks everyone for attending.
Okay, thank you. Good night, everyone.
Yep, good night.